Alrighty, welcome folks back to another installment of Election Detection Online. My name is Johnny Robinson, and this is my co-host.
Charlie Cutro, who's on the other side of you.
Hey, I'm just going to point to whatever direction, and
Well,
we'll go from there.
you point that way. Eventually, it's going to wrap around the world. So it's symbolic of election
True.
detection, the show that travel around the world. Whatever.
Today, this is the lore episode today, I guess. The lore episode of Election Detection, where all the secrets are revealed. As in, we're just two depressed white guys in our rooms.
Yeah, I would say talking about elections on the internet in our basements, but I'm sitting on my bedroom floor in a fourth floor apartment, so I think it's far from the basement as I can get.
I'm in the basement. And by basement, I mean prison. Lockdown.
I'll have to record on the roof next time so we can get the whole thing. We can get the whole cross section. Anyway, speaking of the
Yeah, there we
roof,
go.
let's go to something that
Speaking
doesn't involve it at all. What's going on in Armenia, Johnny?
Right. So for today's episode, we're going to be covering the recent parliamentary election in Armenia, which is not a Caribbean island nation; it is a European nation.
It does sound like a name that a Caribbean island nation would have, though.
The Sandals Resort in Armenia. That sounds great.
It really does. It really does.
Yeah. Now, if this election came as a bit of a surprise to you folks listening on Twitter, you must be just as sad as us because you're following elections. You follow Armenia much closer than most people because we wouldn't have known about this at all if we didn't do this show. Kidding aside, though, this election surprised a lot of Armenians as well. How do we know? We asked them. Did we? You'll never know. Incumbent Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has only been in office since December of 2018 and was therefore less than halfway through his first 5-year term. However, due to unrest in the nation, PM Pashinyan resigned in late April and the parliament was dissolved in early May, forcing a snap election this month. Here's a few factors that led to this. Number one, the oldest factor dates back to the Armenian Revolution back in 2018. The revolution came about as a result of corruption at the highest levels of government and the re-election of Serge Sargsyan to the position of prime minister. In the previous 10 years, he had emerged as Vladimir Putin's sound-alike in Armenia. He first gained power in 2007 as prime minister before ascending to the presidency in 2009. After serving 2 terms as president, he returned to the prime ministership in 2018 with his Republican Party retaining full control of every level of government. This move was widely seen as a power grab and was met with mass protests both in the streets and in parliament, where protests were led by Pashinyan. After 5 days, Sargsyan resigned and the parliament was dissolved and new elections were called. In these elections, Nikol Pashinyan's Civil Contract Party took the majority in parliament and Pashinyan was elected prime minister. These elections were also celebrated internationally as being Armenia's first fully democratic elections. So, here's where things get fun. It started last year with the reignition of the Nagorno-Karabakh War with Azerbaijan. The war isn't exactly new news. There's been conflict over the breakaway region of Artsakh since before the breakup of the Soviet Union, and there was previously a full intensity war in the early 90s. Some may remember that. However, in this case, the 6-week war ended with significant territorial loss for Armenia and the stationing of Russian peacekeepers along key corridors between Armenia and Artsakh due to the terms of the newest ceasefire. This led to protests calling for Pashinyan's resignation due to Armenia's losses in the war, which finally culminated in an alleged Republican-backed attempted military coup in February of this year. Now, coup might be a little bit of a strong word for what happened, as it basically consisted of an impasse between the legislative and executive branches of the government, as well as the military. The whole thing started when Pashinyan stated in an interview that he doubted the effectiveness of the Russian-sourced missiles used by Armenia in the war. The deputy chief of the military quickly dismissed these claims while making derisive comments about Pashinyan's leadership. Pashinyan dismissed him from his post only hours later. This led Onik Gasparian, the chief of the military, to lead 40 officials in a campaign for Pashinyan's immediate removal. In response, he stated he would only resign at the request of the Armenian people and signed an order dismissing Gasparian. That's 2 people fired so far. The technically an independent but highly Republican-aligned president, Armin Sargsyan, refused to sign the order, and Gasparian remained at his post, back down to one firing so far. Basically, this political clusterfuck, I could finally say that. I don't have to censor myself. I almost want to say it again just for fun, but I won't. The political fun continued for another month with Pashinyan, Gasparian, and Sargsyan all pretty much trying to fire each other on a daily basis, while protesters on every side of the argument staged frequent rallies. It finally came to an end on March 28th when Pashinyan announced he would resign in April, but continue in a caretaker position.
Hey, you cut cake when you don't have a knife, you get the caretaker.
Caretaker. In a caretaker position with the intention of forcing snap elections in the summer. So that finally brings us to 5 days ago, the snap elections on June 20th. How'd they go? Well, Pashinyan regained the full prime ministership with 53% of the popular vote for his Civil Contract Party, who took 72 of the 105 seats in the National Assembly. This is a fall of 16 seats from 88 in the previous election. However, it is worth noting that due to Armenia's territorial loss in the war, the National Assembly shrank from 135 seats to 105 seats prior to this election. So while the civil contract lost 16 seats, they actually increased their share of the assembly from 65% to 68%. 1% being worth noting. 1% short of being worth noting. The newly formed Armenia Alliance, led by former President Robert Kocharayan, became the largest opposition party with 27 seats. The alliance inherited Onik Gasparian's base due to their shared anti-Pashinyan sentiments. Rounding out the assembly is the Zuko-esque I Have Honor Alliance. Oh God, how old do you have to be to get that nowadays? I don't know. A union of Republican Party and right-wing Homeland Party, led by former President and Prime Minister Serzh Sargsyan. They took the remaining 6 seats. 2 other parties, Prosperous Armenia and Bright Armenia, were pushed out of the parliament. And that just about covers Armenia right now, but stay tuned because the way things are going in Armenia, we'll likely be back soon.
So do you think we'll be back to Armenia soon, or are we done with Armenia, or what's going on in Armenia?
I think we'll most likely be back soon, considering the instability of things all and protests still ongoing. I think it'll be a little bit before things settle back out.
You know, with the number of places that are dedicated to going to war with Armenia right now, maybe they'd be better off if they were a Caribbean island.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people hide out there when they need to. So
yeah, I was gonna say we should find a Caribbean island and go, hey, do you guys need this? I feel like we should find a Caribbean island and establish it as just a political asylum island. So whenever a government has to flee from any particular country, they can just go to this island until things are done.
I mean, that sounds like a great but also terrible idea. Also, isn't that basically just what Argentina was?
Well, I was going to say the U.S. has an island like that for exiled governments of their enemies, but it's not an island. It's just Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're just talking about Guantanamo Bay, aren't you?
Well, someone has to. I mean, the U.S. doesn't like it when people talk about Guantanamo Bay, which is like the entire reason why we're here.
Yeah.
But back to Armenia, even though it's not a Caribbean island.
No, so
we've seen some things here that we haven't seen before. For instance, a national legislature shrinking due to territorial losses. That's new.
Yeah. That's an election deduction first to discuss.
Yeah. You know,
it happened.
It must be an interesting election when it's like, oh yeah, we lost a whole bunch of seats, but we've actually got a bigger share now.
Yeah.
Kind of worked out.
We've got to be feeling pretty good for the next 2 days.
Well, I mean, it's probably not feeling particularly good when you lose a large chunk of your country and some of your coworkers get fired because of it.
9. I'm not Armenian. I don't live here now.
I really hope that this one airs after Sweden. Otherwise, that
would be really awkward.
Absolutely zero sense. Alrighty, you know what? I think that's about all the time we've got here today. So we hope this airs after Sweden. If this doesn't air after Sweden, just wait for Sweden, and hopefully things will make sense to you.
I promise that wasn't a German joke.
No, it wasn't. It was a Sweden joke.
I mean, German also lost a lot of territory in the 20th century. So
this is true. But I mean, a lot of it wasn't theirs in the first place. So,
Also true.
though Azerbaijan would probably say that about Armenia as well.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna get on out of here before we end up with most of Europe coming after us.
Yeah.
Keep second elects, people. Bye.
Bye.